It is a pleasure to be with you this morning. It is always an amazing experience to get to have this particular forum to talk about music. And today I am excited to have two people who I hold in the highest regard. One, another staff member here at Christ Church, and another, a young conductor and composer from our community. I'll tell you more about them in just a second, but we are here to talk about how music is transformative. Well, sitting in this room right this minute, listening to me fumble with the microphone, and perhaps even noticing that I have on my organ shoes, which are exceedingly unpolished, you may have lost the sense of being somewhere special. I imagine, however, that music can change that. Let's sing something that might give us a context for today's experience. I'll play an introduction. You stand up and just sing. I promise you'll know the words.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. 'Twas blind, but now I see.
Don't sit down. We're going to sing that again. But I'd like you to think for just a second about those words. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. You hear all of the references to our senses, all of those things with which we perceive our world and participate in our world. Amazing grace, the grace perhaps in this moment is music. Albus Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series said, music has far greater power than any magic we teach here. That is indeed the case, but there are a lot of building blocks, small things that go into making music happen. I'm going to change something very simple about Amazing Grace. I wonder if you will sense yeah, there it is. All right. Just use the handheld mic. Got it.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.
The choir director's really about to come out. So, ladies and gentlemen, I made the key different. Did anybody sense that? It was higher. It was higher. We're going to sing it one more time. See how this one feels.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Did you notice a difference? So perhaps the first one might have heightened the excitement, or perhaps the energy needed, or perhaps the breath to sing it. The last one should have felt much more relaxed and much more sort of easy to sing. Music has many elements that can be adjusted in many ways to create that sort of magical moment. Have a seat. I am going to introduce my colleagues right now and let you know who we are and what we're here to talk about. First of all, we're going to talk about the transformative power of music. We're going to talk about how music helps us to communicate and express our emotions and hear other people's emotions. We're going to talk about how music affects our cognitive functions, especially in young children who are in school, or college kids, or any of us who go back to school. We're going to talk about how music can affect physical well-being, how it can motivate us, and we're going to talk about how music can unify social groups around specific topics. I'll tell that story in a minute. Right now, let me introduce my colleagues. First of all, we have right here in the middle, Katie Lehman. Katie is our associate musician for children's music. Katie has been with us now for 2 years?
2.5.
2.5 years. During COVID tide, we lost track of who came when. It was amazing. But Katie came to us. Katie is a native of North Carolina and has done incredible work along this year with Lauren Tommy in working with our kids. Katie's going to talk more about that in just a second. Matt Wetmore is another Charlotte native. Matt started a choir called the Charlotte Chamber Choir right here at Christ Church. That group is only 2 years old. Matt's primary occupation prior to starting this group was as a composer, and he's going to talk about being a composer. But right now, we're going back to the elements of music. You just heard me talk about key, whether it's major or minor, whether it's a high key or a low key. There are all kinds of keys, we call them modes in music, that change the experience of something like Amazing Grace. On Friday night, we did a concert that we truly enjoyed singing because the music was so diverse. There was a piece by J.S. Bach, which was very solidly in a major key. But then we did an extended piece by a French composer named Maurice Durufle. He was dramatically informed in his compositional style by the works of Debussy and Ravel. His style could be considered impressionistic, and it relies on key centers that are more modal and based on Gregorian chants. So let me do a Maurice Durufle modal version of Amazing Grace. Key and harmony and melody are where music starts to create that incredible moment that transforms us from maybe a moment that would be like this. That is a very different moment than some of the stuff we would hear at church. However, melody that we sing in church tends to be sort of contained within a small range of pitches and tends to be easier to hear. I know some of you are going to take me to task on particular hymns, but in general, we'll say in general. Matt's going to talk to us just a little bit about rhythm and how rhythm affects what we do.
Well, hello, everybody. So if key, harmony, and melody have to do with the pitches in music, rhythm and tempo have to do with time. So rhythm you can think of as just the specific pattern of how the notes fall. Is it a lot of notes in quick succession? Is it very few? Whereas tempo is how fast the overall music is moving. So you can think of these as kind of a small scale and a large scale view of the same element. And then there is texture, which is a little more hard to pin down, hard to define, a little more esoteric. Texture is kind of what it sounds like. It's how the music feels in the moment. Is it very dense? Is it very sparse? And there are a lot of things we could dig into here, but two of the big ones are homophony and polyphony, or homophonic and polyphonic. And for that, the main thing to focus on is when you have a lot of notes together, a lot of voices singing different notes at once, do they all move together, or do they all move independently from one another and kind of weave in and out? In our hymn book, there's much more homophonic. We're all changing notes at the same time, for the most part. Polyphonic is, you might go back to maybe the Renaissance era. You're going to find a lot more of it there, where every singer is kind of independent, and yet the music meshes together to form that really wonderful texture. Now I'm going to hand it over to Katie, who's going to talk about a few other aspects of music.
So I'm going to talk about timbre, which is an interesting one. So timbre is talking about the color of a particular sound, colors of instruments or of human voices even. You can have something that's very bright, very happy, very triumphant sounding. Things that are very warm can sound very solemn, very serious, and those things can work together to create shades in the middle between warm and bright. We also use dynamic changes in music, which is easy for us as a congregation, as a group of people, to sense when that's happening. Dynamic changes talk about the volume or the forcefulness of something, so something that is very gentle and soft versus something that is very strong and loud. And articulations are also really easy to sense. And I'm a teacher. I love a good example. Ben, would you mind coming and doing some playing for me for a second? So articulations are the breaks or the flow in music. So you could have something that's very legato. That means very smooth. Amazing Grace. Ben, very legato, please. And that is what we just sang. That's what we are used to hearing with that song. Could you play it staccato, please? A bit of a different feeling. Marcato. Something you never thought you'd hear, Amazing Grace as a Sousa march, right? So articulations really change the color of what we're doing. These things all work together to create the musical experiences that we as humans have together.
So the other thing that really makes a big difference in music is the context from which it came, or for which it was written. Most of the stuff we do in church, especially the two big pieces on Friday night's concert, were written for specific occasions in the church. Bach wrote the Lobet den Herrn as a celebratory piece for weddings or for civic occasions that needed, some serious joy to get them started. Durufle wrote his Requiem, which is the text for the funeral text out of the Catholic prayer book. Wrote his in memory of his father when his father passed away. Durufle was an exceptionally hard on himself as a composer, a perfectionist of the first class. He wrote and rewrote that piece his entire life. So what we are left with is just a highly crafted, incredible piece of music. Before we move on from this, though, I would like to ask the guys in the back who worked super hard this weekend to get our concert on Friday night recorded and to have something for you to see this morning. The piece that I'm going to ask was the sort of opening piece of our concert, and it was written by a man named Benjamin Britten. It is a very happy dance piece that I think will give you yet another sense of occasion. Thank you, guys. Great job. Great job. So before not before, I'm going up here right now. Otherwise, I might have to play more examples. When Katie said, Ben, would you play some pieces for me? I was terrified. I thought maybe she'd say Chopin or something.
Next time.
Next time, I got it. So I'm going to read a little story to you. Last week in staff meeting, I talked to my colleagues and I said, I'm doing this class on how music has the potential to transform us. Do any of you have any transformative experiences that you'd be willing to share with me? So one of my colleagues wrote a beautiful email, and I would like to start today with that. Growing up, my dad was in a band, so music was always in our home. It became my place of solace, self-expression, and release. I remember being a teenager and escaping to my bedroom to just listen to music, to soothe my anxiety, and help me feel at ease. I was one of 4 girls, so I craved the time I could get away and tune out. I was also always a part of a choir from age 8 to 22. Singing in a choir gave me a sense of belonging I didn't have anywhere else. It didn't matter that I wasn't trendy or that I was an introvert. The gift of singing together and making music gave me a way to see eye to eye with people who I might have otherwise been intimidated to be around. It made me feel confident. Music has always been my love language. Again, I couldn't think of a better example of how music has affected a life. Music as an emotional expression is a stress relief. It's a mood enhancer, and it's a physical thing. Listening to music as well as making music causes your body to release some neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin that actually physically help us relax. As a way to express our emotions, myself as a teenager spent many hours alone at the piano getting out my teenage angst. I'm curious, guys, did either of you have a similar experience?
I had no teenage angst, sorry.
That's very impressive. She is great.
Just kidding. I mean, yeah, music is a refuge, right? When things are hard, when things are happy, when things are, whatever they are, there is music for that. And that has been true for me my entire life.
Yeah, certainly as a high schooler, band, I was a band kid, was easily my favorite class. It was one of the few classes I actually looked forward to. It didn't feel like school and school work. It felt like a stress relief. It felt like fun.
Well, music and its effect on cognitive function is another very important thing in what we do here at Christ Church. Katie and Lauren, teach the children. Katie, can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, so in order to understand my love for church music for children, you have to know where I came from. I am the daughter of a music director. So growing up, I was in every choir, adult, children, everything in between. I rang in every handbell choir. I was in the back of every brass rehearsal and every Easter sunrise service. I was there, happy or not, but was there. And that music, the church music, became my own personal musical mother tongue. That is the music that I grew up hearing. I am also an elementary school and early childhood teacher. The idea that children need to learn music as a part of their schooling, as a part of their growth as a person in this society and as a human in this world, is really important to me. And the marriage of those things, church music and education of music for children, both take place here, which is the best marriage ever. So Lauren and I get to work with kids every week who are going to be willing, happy, joyful participants in worship, but also in music making as a community together. Our music making has two parts. Our ministry has two parts. Our ministry to the church, we provide beautiful music for Sundays, for special festival services. We learn all of the service music to be able to lead the congregation in worship. But the other part, the ministry to the singers, to the kids involved in our choir, is equally as important. They are learning, yes, musical skills, foundational knowledge about how to be solid musicians, but they're also learning how to be a part of a group, how to be a part of a community that cares for each other, and to be an active participant in something that is bigger than themselves. Growing up, like I said, I was in every choir. My most worshipful experiences in church are when I am leading worship in that way. And I love that we get to help shepherd those kids, the kids that sing with us in our choir program, into feeling what it is to have a worshipful experience through leadership in music and choir. And that is just the most exciting thing that we get to do every week.
Thank you very much. I have another quote here from a former parent of she's still a parent, but her children are no longer in choir. But she wrote, "My daughter's choir experience was foundational to their adult lives, evidenced by continuing close friendships, constant sharing of memories of singing at home and abroad, and tales of joys and trials of learning to read music, a skill they still enjoy." A lifelong skill, by the way. If you become musically literate as a young child, you've got it for the rest of your life. Music, of course, is, Katie touched on this, a social force. It brings people together across all sorts of boundaries. There's the wonderful relationship between Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Justice Anthony Scalia. All of a sudden I can't remember his first name. But they came together, although they were adversaries on most points of legislation. They came together over their love of opera, and that provided a bridge for them to be able to communicate. Matt leads a group in town of people from all over. Can you tell us a little bit about your group?
Yes, so my choir is called the Charlotte Chamber Choir, and as Ben mentioned earlier, we started here in fall of last year, so we were only in our second season, and it has been an interesting journey to put together this group and to start to build this community, not just of the singers themselves, but of our potential audience, people that will come to see the concert and get something out of that. It was interesting. When I started the choir, I thought to myself, well, I'd like to put together some pieces of music, put on some concerts. What I did not think to myself was, I'd like to do a lot of legal paperwork. Unfortunately, you do have to do that. That is part of the process. I was lucky enough to work with a group of law students out of UNC Chapel Hill. I don't know if you know that they do this, but they will help pro bono nonprofit organizations incorporate legally and go through that process. So I was lucky enough to have them work with me to go through all that paperwork. And when you're becoming a 501c3 organization, as we became, you have to select what type of organization you're going to be. You have to pick a category. I guess the state of North Carolina really wants to know, what category specifically are you? And I looked down the list and I saw something like arts and entertainment, and I figured, okay, yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to be. But these law students advised me, and they said, not quite. You will put that, this is obviously an arts organization, but we're also going to put educational. I thought, okay. My first thought was, okay, you can kind of defend that, sure, okay. That's kind of clever. We're going to say we're educational, sure. We can defend that, I suppose. But the more I've thought about it, the more I have realized that really is a huge component of this group. And what I've found with putting on concerts, in a more civic way, in a more secular way, is the audience that comes and the audience that comes back has come up to me and has said, we love hearing this music, but we also really loved hearing about the music. And we loved hearing some background on these pieces, on perhaps where this music came from. It's from the 1400s. What was even going on back then? I have no idea. We have loved learning as well as hearing. And so that has been something I didn't think of going into it. An interesting component of this community is that this isn't just, here's some nice music, because these days anyone can go on Spotify or YouTube and just hear a piece of music. So one kind of has to wonder, what is the reason to go to an actual live concert? And this is part of it, to have a program put together and to learn something about this music.
So Matt brings up two great thoughts that I'd like for us to explore a little bit. First of all, attending live musical performances. How is that different from listening to something from Spotify? What do you get out of that experience? And I'll ask the two of you. What do you imagine is different for audience members from hearing live music versus a recording in the comfort of your own home?
Well, there are a couple of things. I think one is just, it is a different sound. It may be fairly nuanced to that, but just something about being in the room with the actual human voices, if we're talking about choir, the actual instruments, if we're talking about instrumental music, that it is just a different sound, a different experience. But I think there is also something to the attention when you are in the room, when there's actual other humans rather than just a machine producing the sound. I think it draws you in a far deeper way than just having an electron, having ones and zeros turn into sound.
I was going to say human connection also. Seeing real people with real talent putting on music, you are a part of that experience instead of just being a bystander on the other side of your computer speaker. You are in the moment, in the music, right with them, having a human connection with the people putting on the performance.
I think both of you are right, and the thing that I would like to add to that is, as a performer, the audience is my motivation, is one of my motivations. The opportunity to look up and see someone listening, perhaps even see someone smiling and enjoying what's going on, or thinking about what's going on, is another level of motivation for what performers, singers, instrumentalists, anybody, brings to the table. There is that moment in performance when magic happens. And I'm not talking about Dumbledore's magic. I'm talking about that energy exchange between human beings, which causes us to lift ourselves out of what perhaps we have practiced so carefully and do more than we thought we could do in the first place. So the role of the audience in live performance is significant. Eye contact, energy, the hubbub in and around a performance, all of that contributes to the energy and excellence of the performance. The other thing that Matt caused me to think about was, I want to make sure that everybody here knows that Christ Church has a Community Partners in Music program. We have space that goes unused during the week. And when I first arrived here, Chip said, how can we use this space for the arts? And the obvious answer was, there are lots of arts organizations looking for places to rehearse and to put on concerts. We're extraordinarily fortunate at Christ Church that our sanctuary has a beautiful acoustic for music. It really blends voices, enhances timbres, and is a lovely place to be, to listen to music. But all of these Sunday school rooms, the choir room, we have taken the opportunity to connect with groups like Matt's, to give them free space so that they can do their creative work. So we also work with Arts Plus, who was formerly known as the Charlotte Community School of the Arts. They offer music lessons to scads of students every week right here at Christ Church, using some of our Sunday school space for their lessons. They also have Suzuki classes, recitals in the Blue Room, in the choir room. There are independent piano teachers in our parish who do their piano recitals in the choir room. So our Community Partners in Music program is an outreach arm of Christ Church that you probably would only know about if you're here during the week and you see very small kids with very small violin cases, or very small kids with very large cello cases. It's a wonderful exchange with our community and invites people to be a part of what we do. Community School of the Arts, Bach Academy, the choral ensemble Caritas. There are lots of groups. On our Friday night concert, Matt's group joined us, and it's the first time the Christ Church Choir and one of our community partners actually did a concert together. And it was a raging success. It was fun to sing with your folks, Matt. And so hopefully we'll have more opportunity to do that sort of thing. Another one of the ways music is transformative is just the physical benefits of it. I don't know how many of you may work out regularly or walk in your neighborhood daily, but music has the opportunity to keep us motivated at these things which become a little bit onerous. I don't know about you, but getting to the workout is always a challenge for me. Usually once I get there, I have a great time. But that's usually because I've got some big music playing in the background, and my working out turns more into dancing, perhaps. Maybe not visibly, but in my head. But music has an incredible motivating effect. Music in worship can have the same experience. It can resonate with your body. The organ is a massive instrument, and it can make a vast amount of sound. One day I was standing with a friend who had a limited knowledge of organ, and I was showing her an instrument, the new instrument down at Providence Methodist, and they have a stop on the organ called a 32-foot stop. It's a huge pipe. And when you use it, it gives a rumble underneath that you actually physically feel. And we were standing side by side, and Nick Hague was the organist at the time, and he pulled it on, and all of a sudden the rumble started rumbling. And she turned to me, and with the most delightful look in her eye, just held her arms like this and said, "I can feel that." And I was like, "Of course you can. That's the whole point." And so hopefully, music and worship has that ability to rattle your cage, perhaps. Shake the everyday dust off your soul and give you the opportunity to think and feel fresh thoughts.
Can I jump in with an invitation, Ben?
Absolutely.
So when working with children, one of the best parts of working with very young kids is they don't yet know that singing and music is something that they could possibly be embarrassed by. They don't know that yet. And I love that because they sing without abandon, they sing with joy in their hearts, they sing sometimes in the right key, and it's great, you know? But I think we as adults have grown understanding that maybe singing isn't for us. Maybe music is something that we only listen to and we don't participate in. The organ being such a massive instrument is perfect cover if you are nervous. We can't hear you anyway. So I invite you to participate. That is one of the things that we are striving to teach these kids here, how to become confident participants in worship. And they can do that in the pew just alongside you. You can do that too. To make sure that when the hymns are happening and the service music is happening, that's a place for them. And it's a place for you. It's a place for all of us to find that human connection every time we sing and worship. So that is my invitation to you. I promise we will not hear your individual voice. Sing loud and proud.
Thank you for saying that very much. I'm going to put a plug in for modeling for children's education. Children are watching, ladies and gentlemen. They're watching, and how you participate in worship is how they will participate. And it is wonderful to watch them on the day that they realize they have their own power. It's the most amazing thing because it transforms them, especially in music. When they realize that their voice is appreciated, all of a sudden it gets turned up many notches. There was one little fellow in church this morning whose responses were so loud that it was a little amusing.
And also with you.
At least
great.
that loud, maybe even louder. It's sort of, I'm glad I didn't have my hands on the keys, actually. But it's amazing how much they love it until they think, well, maybe I shouldn't love it so much. So modeling is a great way to teach children, even children you don't even know. That's the amazing thing about it. Modeling is a big part of why our Community Partners in Music program is also important. Because as the church, the ancient church, we have been a patron of the arts. We have commissioned pieces, we have commissioned paintings and sculptures and architecture and all kinds of music. And we still need to keep that going in the 21st century because our story is an important story to tell with fresh eyes, fresh art, and fresh voices. Matt and all of the other groups that are our community partners, spend lots of time, weeks, working on a single performance. Our choir, the Christ Church Choir, has a pretty quick turnaround because there's always next Sunday. So when we add something like a concert to the program of music that we need to rehearse and practice, then we have to sort of dig deep and find some extra time at home and show up ready to go. I would like to ask you if you would give a round of applause to all of the Christ Church choir members that are sitting right over there. With that in mind, I'm going to say one last thing, and then we need to go rehearse for the next service, which is absolutely a perfect exit for us today, because when you see us, we are at work. We love our jobs. We love sharing our voices and our musical skills. We love teaching. We love modeling. We are musical geeks, I would guess you could say. However, we also are part of your congregation, and we love chatting. So feel free to thank the choir members individually. Stop them in their tracks and tell them, wow, I was so glad you were standing beside me when you sang that descant today. So I'm going to offer one last thing while we make our exit, and then I hope we will see you again in the 11:15 service. Friday night, we sang a Bach piece, and I think that is ready to play for you. Yes, I'm getting a head nod from Hunter. So I'm going to ask Hunter to play a little bit of that, and I would like to thank you for your time and attention and enthusiasm for what we do. It is our joy. Hunter?